Hey HBs, this is Heaving Bosoms, the podcast where two fabulous friends recap romance novels while bonding, swooning, and being the snarkiest. This week, it's two best friends multiplied by 2, because the Overdue podcast boys came to join us in all our shenanigans. We recap The Love Hypothesis by Hazelwood. We're serving up Raylo parallels, Flintstones references, and Aaron's detailed account of how higher education dollar bills work. So here we go.
I can only snap with one hand. I can't snap with my other hand.
I can't snap with either hand.
Can I snap?
And I can't snap with my dominant hand. I can only snap with my offhand.
It's very interesting.
It's not that interesting. You're very kind.
I find it very interesting.
Is this the podcast?
This might be the podcast.
Hey, how have y'all been?
It's good. It's great to see you.
I'm buying a house. Craig's starting a new job. It's a time of great upheaval
Oh,
Yeah.
boy.
on our side of the mic. But
Yes.
Yeah. Well, same over here. We just sold our house. We're under contract for our house. And now we're like, hey, can we buy a house? We do technically still need to sell ours. Is that cool with you? And people are like, kinda. Ugh. So, it's fine over here.
Yeah.
How about you, Aaron?
Oh, just normal. I have the same 3 jobs I always have. Same 3 jobs, same 2 dogs, same 1
Poor
husband.
thing.
Yeah. Staying
3
here in this house.
jobs.
Can't make me leave.
That's really the way to do it.
Our rock that's what you are. You're just keeping us all moored.
Steady.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I'm the water that slithers around you.
Yeah, yours.
I love looking at a raging river and being like, thanks, rocks.
Yeah. Rocks, you're doing the thing.
All right, so we made you guys read this book
We did.
Yeah.
You did.
because
Once again, when are y'all going to make us read a book?
Per tradition.
per tradition.
Per tradition, yeah.
But I thought this would be a good book to read because it was like the number one. I mean, I'm saying number one. This could technically not be true, but it was one of the most popular romance novels in 2021 because
There was a lot of hype, yeah.
because it
was like-
blew
there was
up
big.
on TikTok. It became like a huge viral sensation. And it had a interesting publication journey, which I thought you guys would find interesting.
Yeah.
And then, I thought a lot of people would know it, maybe even from your listenership that aren't romance readers, because it seemed like a gateway drug for a lot of people who are on like Book Talk and like Bookstagram. So
Now, Aaron.
And if you go to, there's a site, Amazon.com. I don't know if you've heard, they sell some books.
Oh, God,
in
I've
addition
never
to a bunch of
even-
other things.
Gosh, thank you
and
for
if
the
you
tip.
go to their romance books page, this book is like big old featured banner, top of the page, like
Yeah.
over every single other thing. So yeah, you could say that it's prominent.
I was just wondering if you could tell me what a book talk is.
it's
It's TikTok for books.
It's
old
good
man.
question.
I'm like,
4 books. I'm not on it. It does sometimes creep into my For You page, which is like, it's not really honestly welcome there. But
is it
I'm
like
told that's
is
the
it
way
like a lot
this
of-
book got to prominence.
is it a lot of people being like, here's a book I'm excited about? Is it a lot of
Yeah.
reviews? I like
Is it
to like-
memes?
Is it
It's
memes?
a lot
So
of like
it's
this, a
all
lot of like
those.
pointing, and then like books will appear, and it's like if you like this, you like this book, yeah, like that
And
kind
then,
of thing.
or they'll be like,
Shabuki. This
That's
book is
exactly
hard
it.
to get. Yeah.
are you a professional book talker, Craig?
Starting just now. I was
Neato.
playing dumb for the show.
That's great stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and then what else? What else do they do on Book Talks? I'm mostly on the Monster Fudgers Book Talk.
I want to be really
That sounds made
clear
up.
that I'm non-participatory in Melody's book talk. I'm on this podcast, and that TikTok is for a different podcast.
It is. That TikTok is for bonkers romance, which goes different places than Heaving Bosoms does.
Okay.
So, I mean, mostly. So yeah, and then a lot of times it's like they'll just hold books in front of it, and then it'll be, you know, text being like, "Oh wow," or some of them are like comedy, like here are the tropes, You know, like they'll do riffs on tropes and stuff. So,
which feels very relevant to this book for sure.
Very,
very aware of the tropes and into them.
Very meta.
Yeah, it gets pretty meta about it. Frankly,
That's true. Yeah, this is like a much newer book than we typically cover on. We've been doing newer books more frequently over the lifetime of our show, but this is certainly one where it's like, what, this came out in 2021, and now Allie Hazelwood has 3 books coming out in 2022.
Yep.
Like this is her moment, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, and it got so big so fast that then there was like a very quick like social media backlash to it as well, where there were like a lot of people being like, this sex scene is cringe. Like there was a lot of like, this is cringe and this is tropey kind of backlash. And there were a lot of people like dissing fan fiction and saying that publication shouldn't come from fan fiction. And this book feels fan fiction-y, quote unquote. And like, what does that mean? What does it mean to feel fan fiction-y? And, you know, like that, it got into this kind of bigger discussion, which was really interesting as well.
I feel like I've run into this a couple of times, so this is completely unscientific, but I do think, especially for people who are like one generational rung below us collectively,
you mean
there's
below
a tendency
in age?
to maybe younger than us. I was trying to be like highbrow and highfalutin about it, but I think there's a tendency to use the word cringe to cast a very wide net to describe a wide variety of different like feelings about things.
Well, and frankly, like cringe a lot of times is in vogue, you know, like those 2 crazy twins in Florida who like, you know, rapped or whatever, that they were cringe in a way that I can't even explain to anybody.
These characters, particularly Olive, the main character seems to know when she is extremely embarrassing to herself.
Yes.
And I don't not even know if I'm using it correctly, but cringy.
Yeah.
And like the book seems to be interested in that feeling.
I mean, I found it very relatable content.
Sure.
You know, like as a quasi-professional clown, a lot of times I know actively when I'm embarrassing myself, but I either can't stop or won't, you know?
Sure.
So that's, I thought it was fine.
This is just the classic contemporary romance tale of 2 hot dummies who can't talk to each other. And that's what most contemporary romances are about.
Yeah.
It really is the axis on which this book spins. Is like nobody's ability, like every conversation stops 1 sentence short of the one that would make the whole rest of the book stop working.
Exactly.
And they just can't do it. They can't get there. They can't do it.
Yeah.
And it's paced like a lot of, you know, rom-coms, and a lot of where those movies live these days is on like your Hallmark channels. Though I know, you know, there is a Netflix rom-com thing that, you know, they're playing with it, but you don't see them as often in like wide release in film anymore. But yeah, it's a lot of that like serendipity, both in the good way and in the complicating way. Kind of stuff.
One thing that I did really like about this book is that it's set in the biology department of Stanford, and all of the science not only felt simultaneously mostly accessible, but also very spot on, especially as far as like the politics of academia are concerned.
For sure.
And Allie Hazelwood is, you know, her life either other than writing romance or before writing romance, I'm actually not super sure, is in science academia. So
I read interviews from her like on the circuit for this book talking about being a professor in the present tense. So as far as I know, she still is doing it.
Yeah.
But then also talks about having her like AO3 profile still active and up
Hell
there.
yeah.
I believe it is ever_so_Raylo is the
Great.
Yes. Yeah, she's a big Raylo stan.
Yeah, found that from her Tumblr. So that's so she's on AO3. Craig, what else do you want to tell us?
Yeah,
about her?
so she was born and raised in Italy. She lived in Japan and Germany before moving to the U.S. to pursue her PhD in neuroscience. As we said, this was her debut novel. Her other books due out, or I guess, I don't know when, if any of them have come out yet. Under One Roof, Stuck With You, and Below Zero, all slated for 2022 releases. I saw an interview with her on Collider that really dove into like the background. This might be one of the ones you were referencing, Andrew, about her AO3 background. And this is just her getting into writing. I was really, really into writing fan fiction, first for Star Trek and then for the Star Wars fandom.
Yes.
It was this amazing community. I made a lot of friends and I was just having a lot of fun. And then what happened is I slowly started thinking about trying to write something original, just to challenge myself and to do something different. And while I was in that kind of mood, my agent started reading my fan fiction on AO3, reached out with the DM and says, I saw something you wrote about pulling some of your fics and reworking them. I wanted to tell you I'm an agent and I would love to see some of your manuscripts. And just kind of goes on to talk about finding this, adult friendship community through fan fiction and that kind of spurring her on to write. We've covered other authors who've said similar things based on wherever they started writing. And then, it's very trope aware. Something that's mentioned in that interview is that it is very trope aware because you're often commenting on and remixing tropes in fan fiction anyway.
Yes. Yes.
So you're dealing with character archetypes. You're dealing with recognizable characters. So you have to nod to what they've done in their source material, but also play with the source material. She also mentioned that there was another sex scene that got cut, or another part of the sex scene that's in the book that got cut.
How dare you?
So I'm not sure why that happened. And then, there are a bunch of references to this basically being Rey and Kylo Ren fan fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, it works for me. And actually, some of our favorite authors either like they met in fan fiction. So like Christina Lauren is a writing team, and they were fans of each other's fan fiction for a while, and then they were like, "Oh, I bet we could write together," and now they do. And then weren't they the ones who met Sally Thorne and like hooked her up with an agent because they got to know each other in like the fan fiction sphere?
Yeah, I think a lot of romance authors started in fan fiction, like more than, are even widely known. And, think what you will of Twilight, but it was the vehicle that launched like thousands of great authors because it became such a fic world, when a lot of authors were like right at that high school age of like, now we're going to write romances about Edward and Bella. And then they, then they blew up.
Yeah. And like, I understand that I mean this in the most loving and least like derogatory way possible. But I feel like one of the driving forces of fanfic is like, make them kiss, make characters kiss who either didn't kiss enough, or they never kissed and they should have.
Yes. I mean, Andrew, in what world would that be derogatory?
I just want to make sure that coming from me, a straight white man, like I want to make sure that I am saying that this is true and I'm into it and here for it, and I'm not trying to be snobby about it.
No, totally. And I was actually just thinking, like, is there a world in which Ali Hazelwood like wrote slash fic? Because that is something I would definitely look into.
I mean, if she started in Star Trek, like that is where slash fic like came from. So
hell yeah,
I don't know. Like, I guess I could just browse her archive and see what's in there. But but yeah, like so on the like the argument on Twitter, wherever about whether this is ficky or if that's bad or like, I'll say two things. Like, one is her agent found her on AO3 and like brought her into this prominence from there. So I feel like you are clearly shutting yourself off to some kind of literary success if you're like not participating in this, or if you're like disdainful of it. Like, it's just, it seems like a place where people can be discovered now and find each other. And I think that's great. And I had a second thing and I forgot what it was. So.
Well, one of the things I really like about fan fiction and like starting there, you know what? I'm just going to riff for a while and then you let me know when you're back.
No, please do. And if I remember the super smart thing.
Well, one of the reasons that I think people who start in fan fiction are often so successful is just that so much of being an author and so much of writing is just sitting down and typing the words every day.
Yeah, sure.
And especially in sort of a lower pressure situation where you can get insta feedback from other people who are familiar with the world in which you're swimming. I mean, you get that practice of just like, cranking it out as much as possible and then revising later. So
I wonder too if there's something. Oh, go ahead, Aaron.
I just think it's another way of gatekeeping, like who's a real author and who's not, and it's just it's trash. Yeah,
I remember my second thing now.
Everyone shut up. Andrew remembered his second thing.
Everybody shut. I find it. So we read the book Aragon for Overdue, like relatively recently, like within the last year or so, and I find it way more obnoxious when people are playing with tropes and like genre things and like not admitting that they're basically writing fanfic, not admitting that they're like chopping and screwing all these different things and like putting them together.
Yeah.
Because the author of Aragon is like, well, do we make fun of James Joyce for reworking the Odyssey? And it's like, shut up, dude. Like, just you could just say that you got stuff from Star Wars. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
But I think the reason people do that is
that book too. Like, of course, it was Star Wars.
Yeah, I think it's healthier to admit that you are using other things as your like foundational like building block and then working up from there. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, or just like inspiration has to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
And I don't think that admitting that is a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's interesting too, in fan fiction, like you don't have to do the world building part of like writing in the same way. You're probably still doing some version of it, but you have.
I mean, I've read some fan fiction that is doing some world building.
Yeah, sorry. Fair enough. But it is like there's a foundation for you to already play on, right?
Yeah.
And this is an interesting case where it's like she's got a character relationship or, some character vibes that she's already inspired by.
Right.
And then she's also got all of her lived experience in academia. And so it's got this interesting, it is playing in an existing fictional or, environmental space in the same way that I think a lot of fan fiction writers are playing in someone else's kind of narrative space or world building space.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Because I think the thing that I was also struck by in this book that's outside of the romance element of it, but is more specific to the academia stuff, is just all of the power dynamics that it dives into. And I think this is what you were talking about earlier, Melody, of just like the different ambitions of all the different characters and the ways some characters are leaning into the hierarchy and the way some of them are able to avoid it. And a lot of that mirrors how some of the relationship stuff works, but it's not always one-to-one, and it's not everything trying to be grafted into a neat little box.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it informs the way that people navigate interpersonal relationships. Like, I really liked that in the starting scene, she sort of played with that myth that men, like, can't be sexually assaulted, and managed to do it in a pretty funny, lighthearted way.
Yeah. Should we get into the book?
Should we get into the book?
I think we should. It sounds like we are.
I know, right? It's really exciting.
And y'all had not read this before coming in?
No,
I hadn't read it.
Awesome.
No, we were going to read it anyway, and we thought this might be a good one to do with you guys.
Sure. And is anyone on this call like a biologist?
No.
Or a scientist?
Unfortunately, no.
I am unfortunately a lawyer.
No.
Could be like a biology lawyer.
Could be.
Yeah. Could be a scientist.
I'm sure that's a thing.
I'm very much not. We've said many times. Well, it's honestly kind of funny because we've said many times on our show that we are not scientists, but then we did make our goal to become scientists in 2022, which is kind of an in-joke.
Which we've pretty much already done.
Yeah, so we are like kind of like scientists.
We're like biologist adjacent. You know?
But
like I could talk about mitosis and osmosis.
Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. I know that.
Photogenesis. That can't be right.
Photosynthesis.
Yeah, we're scientists. Sorry. Yeah, we are scientists.
That's what I'm saying.
Photogenosis is when you take pictures of a Sega console.
Or the band Genesis.
Or the band Genesis. These are all good jokes. So this
all right. So
this book starts with a smooch. Starts with a bang.
It does. It starts off with a super, super awkward terrible smooch because
it starts with that prologue. What are you guys talking about?
Thank you, Aaron.
Oh, I'm sorry, Aaron. You're right.
Chapter 1 starts with a smooch.
Sorry. Jeez. I have to do everything around here. It starts with the prologue. And like she's got her she kept this girl's just such a hot fucking mess. Like, okay. Yeah. She's kept her contacts in too long and now she's just like blind, I guess.
Yeah, she put in expired contacts because she's a poor going to be grad student or is a grad student.
Going to be. This is in the prologue.
She's a master's and now she's thinking about PhD.
Yeah, I think she's like digging deeper down the grad student hole.
Yeah.
So she's one of those like very, very smart books wise and like dumb as a post, real life wise. Mm-hmm. And one of those things is that she wears expired contacts and like, I think it's supposed to be a joke, but I was definitely like, oh, because she says like, oh, they're only expired by like a couple of years, I think. Like, that's fine.
But then, like, so she just like ducks into this bathroom that is the hero's bathroom. She can't see him due to expired contacts and the fact that she's like crying and using the eye wash. And they have this kind of conversation about like why she wants to be a scientist. And he like encourages her to do better on her interview. And she can only see him as like a dark, like Kylo Ren shaped blob,
big, but like tall,
that sort of darkly handsome blur.
Yeah, a very like a hair deep voice sort of person, and then like,
and she's convinced he's a grad student.
Yeah,
sure,
and he does
no reason whatsoever.
Yeah, and he doesn't.
Even though he says things like "my lab,"
right.
Yeah,
right.
Well,
but he like didn't give her a business card during this interaction, so I guess she has plausible deniability.
For like a while, not as long as she doesn't realize it, but like a little bit. But like, I just kept thinking, no matter how much encouragement and pep talk this man gives you, like still you can't see and you can't stop crying. Like how well could that interview have possibly gone? Yeah. Like she doesn't fix the problem before the end of the, I want to know what happened, but we never do.
Know.
We just launch right into this smooch.
But all we find out is that she's like, I don't know if I really want to go into PhD. Like it's starting to be like diminishing returns maybe. And he says, well, what's your reason? And finally she comes to like, I have a question that's really, really important to me and I don't trust anybody else to do it right. And, and
she just wants to cure cancer.
Yeah. Discover the life-changing knowledge. Or life-saving, I should say. And he's like, that's the best answer.
Reason.
Oh, get in here.
Be a scientist. Yeah. And she's like, I am going to be a scientist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, she's crying and crying. She is not going to do contact science. I'll tell you that much.
No.
She's not going to study the eye.
No, not eyeball science.
Oh, hey, HBs. I don't know if you've heard, but we have a Patreon. For as little as $5 a month, you get over 150 bonus episodes, most of which include Aaron, videos of regular episodes, author hangouts, and so much more. Do you want to hear Aaron and I recap every single episode of Crash Landing on You? What about a little film called Psycho Stripper? Do you want more recaps of ridiculous Thanksgiving and other holiday books and movies? And how do you feel about Naima Simone and I recapping amazing reality TV? All of that and more is on the Patreon. There's so much content at your fingertips as soon as you sign up. Seriously, hours and hours. Anyway, it's patreon.com/Heaving Bosoms Podcast if you want to check it out. And of course, that link is in the show notes. Keep being a badass.
Okay, so chapter 1.
And we've yada 2 years and 11 months or something.
It's a long time.
Yep. 2 years and 11 months.
And she still hasn't figured out who the tallest, darkest man with the deepest
voiciest.
Like, wouldn't you remember which laboratory's bathroom you stumbled into that day? Like, this man made such an impact on her.
It's really sort of comical how far into their fake dating relationship that they get before she realizes that might maybe have been him who set her life on its current course. Yeah.
And then she needs another person to confirm that it was probably him, which rules.
Just the hottest dummies money can buy. Just
it's
so
so
hot.
good.
And so
Also,
Very
like,
hot and dumb,
she's got two really good friends. So, we're talking about the main character, Olive.
Yes.
She's got two really good friends, An and Malcolm. And they don't. Has she ever told them this story of the mystery man?
No.
Like, I feel like
must not have.
maybe this would have come up in their friendship of when you're like, why did you come here? Why are you putting yourself through this with the rest of us? And maybe
Why do
she'd
you
be
have
like,
ulcers on your retinas? Like, just
my eyes
normal
were
questions.
my eyes were really broken, but a guy spoke to me, and now I'm here. Like,
The man spoke to me.
There's one thing in this book that Olive is consistently bad at, and it's ever telling the truth ever in any circumstances, no matter how low the stakes are.
Or even having a good reason to lie. You're right. No matter how low the stakes are. That's the thing that's nuts to me. It's like, why? Why are we still lying? It makes no sense.
It's true. Or not taking the most circuitous route she possibly can.
Yeah.
Like, she could have just been like, my date got canceled, and that's why I'm at the lab. But I was on date, am date tomorrow. Could have done that, but instead she decides to launch her lips at a big man, and so she kisses him, and it's like this weird peck situation, and he hesitates, and then he does put his hands around her, like, rib cage, ? And then she pulls
one hand
back.
all the way around her teeny tiny rib cage.
Beefy hand.
Yeah.
Teeny tiny rib
Because he's like a
cage.
big, like,
and
golem
remember,
sort of
she's
man.
like 5'8", and he's big. That's what she
so
says
skinny.
at one point.
I know.
Her stomach is so concave. She's so nervous about
It's, like,
how he's going to feel about her
embarrassing.
ribs that jut out because it's so
because she
embarrassing.
eats like
for her.
Lorelai Gilmore. Like, she eats a lot, and it's all junk food. Like, I'm not, but sure.
But every
I'll just
time
file
she
that
like
into the
casually
trope
mentions
pile, I guess.
how many marathons she runs a year. Like every once in a while, she's just like, so many marathons though, reader. Like that's how it
Just so
is.
you know.
How it happened.
Yeah, but like doesn't have time to actually listen. It doesn't matter. So she is like, okay, well, and like tries to walk away, and he's like, hi, did you just kiss me? And she's like, I mean, I'm gonna try it. Nope. No, I didn't.
She's just like jumped right to gaslight. What if I say no? What are you going to do about it?
I would have done the same thing. I love that.
It was like you throwing the blueberry muffin down the hall.
But like she launches herself at this guy because her friend's coming and she's supposed to be on this date, and then it's not until after she pulls back from this smooch that she's like, "Oh my god, it's that professor who's like mean."
It's the professor
the
who's such
one
a
who's
jerk,
like
yeah.
6'5" and huge and like looks like
And
the guy
hot.
that I just smooched. And it's like, how long can we like pretend to not see people in front of us? Like the whole prologue and like the whole like the decision point to smooch during the smooch,
Right.
like and now she knows who he is.
Known
Yeah.
as
Mortified.
Adam Carson.
Yes, Carson. And
Carlson.
he's like,
Carlson.
he's the wunderkind of biology, and he has all of the science grants, and he has the biggest, nicest lab, and he's
And the biggest, nicest chest.
the
too.
famous.
He has the
yes,
biggest, nicest a lot of things.
a lot of things.
But yeah, you might know. I think his first name is the most visible artifact of the Raylo like origin thing. Is because his name is the same first name as the name of the guy who plays Kylo
As
Ren
Adam
in the Star
Driver,
Wars
yeah.
movies. Yeah. Mhm.
And every physical description of him is just,
Yeah.
what if Adam
Yeah.
Driver,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
bigger?
But bigger
Well, I mean,
and
at
like
one- at one
maybe
point,
handsomer.
It's even like, oh, his nose is a little strange, but he's super handsome anyway, and it doesn't make sense, but it just is true.
I never noticed how strange and hot his strange hot nose was. Like, it's really awesome.
Truly. Okay, so he's like, you need to explain to me what just happened. And she's like, I really don't think it's like necessary at all. And so he says, all right, great. Then I'm going to just go to my office and start on my Title IX complaint. And she's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, you kissed me without getting my consent. That's a big sexual harass.
And then she tries to
anywhere.
gaslight him into saying that, like, he said yes. She's like, I asked you, and you said yes. And he's like, I didn't. Like, you did, though. You said yes.
I know. So by the end of this conversation, she does come around and she's like, oh my God, I read all of the signals wrong and I wasn't even thinking about your signals and I was just, so like, yes, please make a Title IX complaint against me. I super deserve it. And oh my God, I'm so sorry.
That's what in my profession we call a confession.
Yeah.
And you're not supposed to do that.
To a legal thing.
Legally.
Yeah. In biology law, we call that a confession.
But so all of she's done this because she's decided this is easier than telling her friend to date her ex-boyfriend who she didn't even like that much.
Yeah, they went on like 3 dates. And then
There's no chemistry or
BFF.
Biology or any of the different kinds of science. Honestly.
That's the one.
No geometry.
No.
No algebra.
There's barely any physics even. Jeez.
No, it's so nuts because like Mel said, she had told this girl that she was on a date to make her think that, you know, she was over this other guy. She could have just said, oh, my date was canceled. Tomorrow's my date. She could have also just talked to her friend and been like, hey, I really noticed you like him. Like, I'm over him. Never was really into him in the first place. Please go for it. Like,
also, like,
I don't really even occurs to her to do.
Yeah. Yeah, never. She would rather lie to her best friend for months.
For months and months and months.
Months.
And like maybe she's doing this because she's such good best friends with An that she knows that she would never actually accept that, like, oh, I'm over him and I was never that into him.
That's what she said. Yeah, she gives An a lot of credit. Perhaps too much of the wrong type of credit, basically.
Right, but like, isn't that An's problem at some point? Like,
a little bit.
A little.
Sorry, like I told you what to do, you didn't do it. Like, sorry, you didn't get that.
And I think there's also
Good stuff.
She's also got a lot of, you know, low self-esteem, self-doubty trope, you know, characteristics.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not to diminish somebody who feels that way. It's just like it is a thing that makes this story work and a thing that advances many parts of the plot, or that she doesn't think she is capable of something or worth something happening. And so she would, rather than face it directly, she will find 5 different lies and pick the worst one with the least consideration. And also it's all driven by this fear of losing people that are important to her because she has no family. Her mom passed away from cancer when she was like 15, and then she moved to the States away from Canada. And so like now she's got 2 or 3 important people in her life, and if she were to ever upset any of them, maybe they would get cancer, I think is like what she feels.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Right.
No, really. And also, like one of the things that this book heavily relies on is her always having that country song running in the back of her head, like, she don't know she's beautiful, never crossed her mind. You know, that one, oh no, she's not that kind. Like, really, she has no idea she's smart. She has no idea she's super pretty. She has no idea about anything.
Well, she wears contacts, so she can't even take her glasses off and have everybody around her realize that she was beautiful the whole time. So, like, I don't know how that's supposed to work, but it is I think this is one, like, Olive's character is one really smart way that the book uses its background, which is like STEM academia. There's no, my understanding from my women friends who are in this field is there is no place on earth to develop more self-doubt than there is to be a woman in STEM. Like, it's it is just going to happen. And then this is something she struggles with personally. It's something she struggles with professionally. And it's extremely believable the whole time, no matter how much other parts of the book are sort of stretching everybody's like imagination and patience. So
completely. And one of the things I really loved about just the overall dynamic is what a foil An is to Olive, because she has sort of she's taken the other end of the spectrum where she's like, no, I'm going to be the fiercest. I'm going to be the most like supportive of other women, other BIPOC women in STEM. And I really liked that even though they had so much interaction and you could tell that their relationship was like very lived in, that like it didn't change their core personalities.
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I also appreciated too that We don't get a lot of time with Olive's advisor, who is also a woman.
Yes.
But we get the sense that, like, while she's a very supportive advisor in terms of supporting Olive's work, at least from Olive's perspective, she's not also getting the emotional support she needs, or the social resources, or Olive hasn't asked for them the right way. So there's what you're saying, Andrew, is they feel disconnected, even though they probably could have more kinship as advisor and advisee. And each of their experience of it is unique enough, like An included, in this miasma of misogyny and nonsense.
Miasma of misogyny. Look at that.
It's a scientific word. I don't know if you know.
Coming down with all the good stuff here.
So she's made out with this guy in the hallway, and then it's for the benefit of An. And then the next day when she's like, hey, were you messing around with Professor Carlson in the hallway at 11 p.m. in the biology lab? For some reason, Olive's like, you saw? How did you know? How did you know it was him? Did you look at him with your functioning eyeballs? Oh no, now this rumor is out there. And An has told her friend Malcolm, who has now told the entire school, and now it's a whole thing.
Oh, Adam walks up too, and he plays along.
Well,
he's like, wasn't that neat?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So she's about to try to make up a lie. Yeah. And he.
Oh, you're right, Aaron. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He can tell that she's flailing. And so, because I feel like that's just her normal state. Really?
I think she has Muppet arms. Yeah.
Oh, truly. So
100%.
He walks up to her and he's he puts his hand on the small of her back, and it's very warm, listener. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Large, warm.
And then
it's just a big, warm slab of hand.
Grounding,
Mm-hmm.
And then he looks and he very intimately says, is everything okay? And then An is like, oh, I'm leaving now, bye. And then she fucks off, and it's very believable. And now they're dating to the entirety of the science community at Stanford.
Yeah, across the coast to coast, everyone finds out.
Harvard knows about it too.
Knows, yeah.
Yeah, because he's so famous.
Yeah, yeah.
And he has no idea either.
It's true. He doesn't understand this, really.
He's one of the greatest, hottest scientists of his generation.
Yeah. Okay, so she finds out that everybody thinks they're dating, and so she goes over to his lab, and she's like, Dr. Carlson, can I please speak with you? And meanwhile, they have not spoken in 2 years and 11 months. She talks about seeing him in the hallway or across the quad or whatever, but never actually interacting with him. And he's just like, yup. And they go into a conference room. He's like, yeah, let me just put down all of my beakers. I don't give a shit about these slides. Let's just go into this conference room.
All of my beakers.
And so he's juggling beakers over
That's
there.
what scientists I've got my beakers. I got my Bunsen burners.
He's just using the force to carry 5 beakers around the whole time. Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, one's got to assume that Olive she's got separation anxiety because her parents left her on the desert planet of Jakku.
Well, that's why, we had the orphan story. She couldn't just write that into a contemporary romance. We had to have pancreatic cancer and stuff.
We haven't discovered Jakku yet, so it can't be in the book.
Oh my gosh.
Wait, so I have a couple things to say. First of all, how little she has interacted with this man since bathroom day in the prologue.
2 years and 11 months ago.
2 years and 11 months ago.
The most famous man on campus.
Just
the most famous
underscores
science man.
how creepy his infatuation is at the end of this book. That he knows all these things about her and stuff, and he talks about her to all of his friends about how much he likes her and has had a crush on. I had a crush on her grad student for so long, and he's only ever seen her from across the quad, just
also,
weird stares.
Doesn't talk to her ever.
No.
Yeah.
Why?
2 years and 11 months is a long time for all this to be going on. It's
and
a really long time.
I know they're very busy science people, barely sleep, doing science all the time. And when they're not doing science, they're writing grants. I get it. But you could nod at her when you're in the break room together.
Then the other thing is, she notes that after people start realizing or thinking that she's dating Dr. Carlson that like they start like giving her the choice beakers and like letting her be in like the better spot in the lab and not like stealing her pipettes and stuff. So like
they don't
later
cut
on,
in front of her for the electron microscope.
Yeah. And like then later on when she's like kind of accused of sleeping with this guy to get like a better leg up in the floor. And she's like, how dare you? I would never do that. Like that is part of her consideration when she starts fake dating him. She's like, I will get better access to the electron microscope.
Everybody's like a little bit afraid of me now, so that's kind of nice.
Loves that shit. I'm like,
and she didn't do it for that, but she has less than zero problem with it once it starts happening.
Right. Right. She's like huge net benefit.
It's not a part of the consideration when she makes the decision.
So what comes first? Does she enter into her fake relationship contract with him and then tell her friend Malcolm about it? Like, or has she talked to?
Yes.
Okay,
So she goes to the conference room and she's like, "Big problem! Everybody thinks we're dating," and he's like, "I mean, I'm fine with that. We could let him keep thinking that." And she's like, "What? You're supposed to like go berserk and tell everybody to go fuck themselves?" And he's like, "I mean, I don't really date anyway, so." And so she's like, "Wow, okay, I'm gonna have to think about it." And then I think she has that conversation with Malcolm. And then
we learn
goes back into his office. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because when he decides to also fake date her, we learn that his reasoning for it is that Stanford has frozen his dollar bills because they think that he might go to Harvard and take their dollar bills, which are more.
And their prestige.
And the prestige, too.
Right.
This feels just like when we asked you to explain werewolf mechanics. In the last
and like that was easier.
Tell me about his funding.
And that was more easy for me. Okay, so because there's like more dollars elsewhere, they think he's going to go elsewhere, really based on nothing except for collaborations. And they think that if he settles down and has roots in Stanford, that will make him stay.
Putting his D into local P.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's putting down roots.
Yeah, he thinks that if they think that he's fucking a grad student, that that's going to help.
Yeah.
And then they will give him more money. I just don't think
like,
that's...
Well, we've got all of these like IP address logs that show you being in Boston a lot, but you are seeing a grad student.
Yeah.
So
we love this sexual relationship between you and a student at our school. Like, that is our favorite thing. You're
technically not
money.
Breaking any rules. It's
and
fine.
I'm sure that there has never been a faculty-student thing that has caused problems at this university.
Never blown up.
I'm sure that everyone on the advisory board is like, this can only be good stuff. Thumbs up. No peer review needed.
Yeah,
we are on
immediately.
board.
Yes.
I guess there's a couple things here that like the specifics of it are like unhinged, but the overall,
because I think both of them are slightly unhinged.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
They are a little bit. Yeah. And he's just more like quiet about it. And so it seems less so.
He's just got this like big deal grant with his buddy Tom Benton from Boston.
Yeah, Tommy Tom.
Ooh,
and
Mr. B.
So I think that's like the lure away to Boston that Stanford's worried about because it's this big deal thing.
Yeah.
But I also know I have a relative who got a job at a college recently, and like they give some very preferential bank loans to professors who are buying houses in the area. I think there's like weird little stuff like that where they do want you, if you're going to be tenure track, you know, they want you to put down roots, and they're going to invest in you, and then they don't have to actually listen to you because they're, you know, paying you enough to stay.
Correct.
Well, I know that there's some consideration going, like if one person starts working at a particular university, like there is consideration given to like getting their partner a job or, you know, like other things that give them incentive to stick around.
And if he's at Stanford, there's, you know, he's a MacArthur winner. They talk about that. He's a genius.
He's a genius.
That's going to attract the next generation, the best and the brightest to Stanford, of course, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, he's like, listen, you need to fake date me until September 29th. when
they
the
release
fall
those
budgeting
funds.
process is over, which makes no sense. That's not when
Until
budgets
the end
happen.
of
It's
the
not how
fiscal
budgets
year.
work.
September 29th.
Like, to what Craig said about like giving preferential stuff to people who like have houses, like he mentions that he's like,
He's a
I'm
renter.
renting right now.
Buy a
I might
house,
have, I would
Adam.
have
Yeah,
to
buy
buy
a
a
house, too.
fucking house. I'm like, buy a house, man.
Your
You're
parents
a
were
professional man in
diplomats.
the world who's very rich. Why
What the
are you
fuck?
renting? That's a red flag, sir.
Yeah.
Like, buy a house.
No, for real. Like,
Don't make data grads.
that's a good
Yeah, and then
investment.
even
It's a bad plan.
even if you do go to Boston, like you could still Airbnb it or whatever. Like real
Totally.
estate's a smart investment. Just do it.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Anyway,
All right.
all right. Okay, moving on.
So sorry.
We've got to
So
cook
she comes
here.
in. She's we do.
Yes.
We gotta go. So she comes in. She's like, "Listen, I will fake date you, but here are the rules. We keep it on campus. We only see each other once a week for 10 minutes and no sex.
No sex.
And he's like, and he like shuts down completely. He's like beep boop bopping. He does not non-computing.
He has to do a hard reboot. Yeah.
He does, yeah.
Hard reboot is the right way to say it. I think we're like I think we can be pretty. This is a neurodivergent hero. Like, I mean, it's not overtly said.
I hate to armchair diagnose anybody, but sure.
And he has a hard time when she throws him curveballs like this, for sure. Like, she's like, no
Yes.
sex. And he's like, I wasn't even thinking about sex. Like, don't.
Right.
Ugh,
And so-
oh my
but
God.
then in her inner monologue, she's like, "Oh, of course, you would never want to have sex with this. Ugh, this absolute
this
detestable
slag heap of a body that I'm walking around in.
Yeah. And so that's hard for him because he's like, no, I've wanted to do you for a really long time.
Yeah.
But he can't say that out loud. No. Okay, so they agree that every Wednesday they're going to meet up at the coffee shop for 10 minutes so that people can see them in the wild doing
Yep.
social things.
For like a
maybe
month.
talking
Yeah.
at each other's faces the tiniest bit.
Yeah.
And
then
so
just-
the other thing is that Tom Benton is coming into town to like see his quote unquote collaborator, but it's very cloak and dagger for a little while. And he is interested in helping her move her experiment along faster
Yeah.
because her advisor isn't doing money stuff very well.
Yep.
She's
Her
not,
advisor is, and it's it's one of the main things that we learn about this character. Her advisor is retiring in like a couple years, so she's basically checked out.
Yes.
And her lab's not very well funded anymore because she doesn't have a lot invested in like the long-term stuff that you need to be invested in to get science done. So
Right.
Olive's like, I have very promising research. I think it's innovative and unique, and I just need money and resources to get it off the ground. And Tommy
so
Cole's
she's
the
lab
one who's
shopping,
bit.
basically.
She
Yeah.
emailed every professor in the country with a good lab and
Right.
was like, hey, can I come over for a year?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Tom's
and
the
it's
only
very
one that got
cute.
back to her, and she doesn't know that that's Adam's collaborator, but we
Yes.
soon find out.
It's a lack of preparation before any major interview that she does. Like,
Yep.
it takes her till the night before to look up a picture of this guy. There's like later
Oh,
she's on
yeah.
a panel with him and she didn't even realize that she's on a panel with him.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever been on a panel?
She wasn't going to go to
I'm-
his talk. Like, she's going
right.
to interview with him. Like, the interview
she didn't know
did
he
with
was
him,
doing a talk
Right.
at
At
the
all.
college.
Yeah.
and it got
Yeah.
bumped up to be like, how about let's do it right now? Because we're all at the coffee shop. So basically, like, he's going to come interview her. Then, like, they're doing their coffee day, and then he's there. And so he's like, why don't I interview you right now? Because you're my friend's girlfriend. And, like, that
Yeah.
got bumped up. And then he's like, are you going to go to my talk tomorrow? And she's like, fuck, a talk? Like, I didn't even know about that. So that talk would have been before her already scheduled interview. So if she had kept
interesting.
the actual interview, he would have been like, how'd you like
Did
the
you go to my
talk
talk?
yesterday?
Yeah.
And she would have
Yeah.
been like, duh, I don't know. Like,
No, she would have come up with the most elaborate possible lie.
Yeah, you're right.
about
She would have
it.
Oh my
said,
gosh.
like,
Like,
I
oh my
was
gosh,
skiing
there was a
and I
giraffe
fell
in the
out of a
road,
plane.
and, like, that
yeah.
giraffe
And
is
like
my
here's like
boyfriend.
here's a notarized receipt from the Staples that I was at, like buying supplies.
And oh my god, I forgot my pajamas.
Yeah. Also, I
Sure,
can't
that's
see
her
right now.
pajamas.
Yeah.
But after this conversation where they lay the ground rules, no sex, like this is a fake relationship, we see each other for 10 minutes. Every time they interact after that just has like full like bound chicka wow wow, like
Yes,
it is
it's
like
hot.
sexy hot music. Like, why don't here's a contrivance where you have to rub sunscreen on my shirtless chest. Yes. Here's just like, I'm just like pushing a car for some reason. And you notice how good and big my muscles are.
When you push a car.
When they're at Tom's, when they're at Tom's surprisingly boring talk, that's like the entirety of Woodstock showed up to attend.
Yeah, because he's known as one of science's biggest hotties.
Yes,
he is. He's a science daddy.
Now, what I do like about these three scenes, the sunscreen scene, your science daddy pushed a car, you need to go kiss him in the street, and the please sit on his lap while Tom talks boringly, all of those are like nudges from An, who is like, well, you said you're dating the known-ass weirdo, I guess just like date him already.
I'm going to need some PDA. Okay, I'm gonna need it.
I'm
gonna squirt all of this sunscreen all over you so that you will go rub it on that hot man playing frisbee who you have said is yours.
I was convinced the whole time that An knew it was fake dating, but thought that Olive liked Adam, so was trying to do her friend thing by like she knew, but she couldn't tell her because if she told her, then she would know. You know, like that whole web. But then was like, I can tell she likes him, so I'm going to be like, why aren't you sitting on his lap? You know, like that kind of thing. But that didn't end up being the case.
She's just a weird
friend.
Not the case.
It's
apparently
like, that's your boyfriend.
Really? Okay. So wait. So they go and they do. So they have the impromptu interview. And one of the things I really, really liked about this is that when Tom is like, so what's cool about your project? And she like fizzles out in her whole brain.
Yeah.
It's really nice because Adam then is like, what kind of question is that? Like, how do you expect her to answer this question? And so he looks at her and he's like, why don't you talk about what your thing is targeting and what gaps in the literature it fills and what you think the problems will be and la, 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 la. And so she's sitting there going, oh my gosh, Adam doesn't know this, but he really did me a solid because he helped me organize all of my thoughts so I can nail this interview. And you know throughout the whole thing that he's doing all of these things very intentionally. Not pushing the car, okay? All right, that was just that was just fate.
That?
Sometimes you just gotta push a car. Sometimes you have to push a car.
I didn't even understand the traffic that was happening. I was kind of confused.
No, don't understand the traffic. I don't understand how pushing it like into the next parking space would make that much sweat. Wow, that was a lot of sweat, you guys.
He's pushing a car.
And I'm a sweater.
He's a big hulking, like 10-foot tall man, but
Hey, HBs. I started an Etsy store. Did you know? Right now, it's full of all the St. Vincent items you need. Because St. Vincent is thoughtful and cozy all year round. We've got a book sleeve to keep your books, planners, e-readers, or really anything else safe when you're on the go. The inside is fuzzy, and they feel so incredibly lush in your hands. I went round and round with the manufacturers to make sure I had just the right thickness. Those feature art of St. Vincent and Evie during their carriage adventure that was painted by the amazing Mayara Faraz on one side, and then I created a St. Vincent Would Always wreath on the other side that has a bunch of little Easter egg items in it. There's a St. Vincent Would Always warm brick enamel pin. It's like, you know, if you know, you know. I designed a special edition Marriage of Convenience candle that is specific to Devil in Winter, with the help of HB Jen at Post Pouring Company. It combines dark amber for St. Vincent and rosewood for Evie, and it smells so delicious. It's hard to even wrap my brain around. So if you want to treat yourself or be the St. Vincent you want to see in the world by getting a care package for a friend, check out our Etsy store. The link is in the show notes.
Wait, you boys like never push cars? I don't understand.
I
like,
push cars.
Never?
I figured it would be like he would know how jumper cables worked, and like I would find that attractive in a man.
Yeah,
because
sure.
I have to Google it. Like I don't just know And I thought that he would just know, and she'd be like, oh, he's such a manly man. And instead he lifts the car up over his head and like puts it in a different parking spot.
I would find if jumper cables were like available and instead a man lifted a car above his head and then just moved it to the next spot, I would find that to be unattractive. You don't have critical thinking skills.
I would be like, this is not about you. Yeah. Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay, and now they go to Tom Benton's talk. And this is where An is like, there are so many people here because he's a science hottie. Please sit on your boyfriend's lap. I would do it, but he's not my boyfriend. He's your boyfriend.
Yeah.
Which like weird flex on. And so then she like looks at him and he's like, he does his one curt nod that he does so often in the book. And so she sits down in his lap. And one of the things I really liked about this is just, I felt like it was one encapsulation of how slowly comfortable she's getting with him.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah. There's a lot of chatter of the two of them kind of like mocking the talk, of just like talking about the room. Once they actually develop a vocabulary with each other, it is very charming, and it's clear that they are both very comfortable with it. It's just all predicated on some lies that they're telling each other and everyone.
Jenga tower of lies. Yeah.
It's true. So then they go outside and Adam is pushing that car and An is like, go kiss your boyfriend. So she goes over and she's like, we have to kiss now because An is looking. And he's like, she is looking. She's still looking at us. We better kiss. And they do, but it's like better than the first one because it is consenting on both sides and everybody's ready for it.
Because it's not a surprise. Can you, like, she doesn't have the thought, is he married, until like chapter 3.
Oh my gosh.
I just want to throw that out there.
Yes.
Anyway, consenting,
and also,
both
why
sides.
Wouldn't she know that if he's the most famous science hottie in the land, right?
No one
like,
likes
I feel
him.
like
He's a jerk.
everybody...
Who cares if he's married? He's a jerk.
He's so dark and mysterious.
Yeah.
It's like he's a jerk, but he's otherwise totally unknowable.
Okay,
yes,
all right, fair. All right, so what happens next? Is it picnic next?
So they've talked
Sunscreen
about
picnic?
They've talked about the stakes of the science picnic, which feels like a Flintstones Moose Lodge episode.
Yes,
where we've got
it's like your boss is coming over to
Craig.
Dinner, and
nice reference, Craig.
We have to be publicly in a relationship.
It's just like Craig knows every way to just like speak deeply to me all the time. Like,
wow.
First with The Happening, and now anyway, before the picnic, this is important. Before the picnic, they have that fight though, because he shoots down somebody else's
Greg
science.
Greg's science project.
His dissertation proposal.
Sure. So he does shoot that down, and he's like,
"Are stupid.
It's bad. Get a new scientific method for it." And so then he's like, stop it with that and do another thing instead. And Greg's like, oh no, if I start over, I'm not going to graduate in time. And then my wife is going to like not live where I live or whatever. And like, it's a big deal. And she's like, you're mean all the time to everybody.
She tells him that he is, unapproachable and
antagonistic.
Yeah. And she's like, don't you think you could say things a little bit more nicely? And he's like, no, that's not my job. My job is not to coddle these people. My job is to tell them whether or not the science they're doing is legit. And if it's not, they should do science better. I don't care where your wife is living. You should have done it right the first time, Greg. And she's like, well, fuck you then, Adam. And then he does like the 3 dots appear and then like no response for a couple of days. Yeah. Oof.
This is my biggest problem with his characterization earlier in the book. And he gets into it even more like later on when they're in the hotel room together. But he is described over and over again as this famous ass who's like a horrible person and everybody hates him and he's a total nightmare. And like, maybe it's just because he has been crushing on her for 2 years and 11 months.
Yeah.
But he is never anything less than like super courteous and thoughtful, and he's
not even like overbearing with her or anything.
He's super nice. Even the reasons why his students hate him, I was actually like, yeah, I am Team Adam on this one. Like, you should just do better work. You should just be able to take criticism.
Yeah.
Yes.
But like things that about her that you would think that would annoy him, where she's just like wildly inefficient and like very flighty and like never knows where her shit is. Like one time when she had to dig in her jeans for her, like her dirty jeans on the floor for her cell phone, that like gave me anxiety. Like that could have been in the washer immediately. Like just so many of those things that I feel like Adam would be like, get your shit together. That like she didn't care about when it was her. I don't.
I've washed my AirPods, Erin.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Have I told you about that?
No, that sounds accurate.
It's like 6.
Right,
it's like 6. Again, relatable content over here.
Sure, but I just feel like Adam would be more annoyed by that, given how he is with others.
I'll tell you that much.
Maybe that's what love is. I don't know.
Yes.
Here's a hypothesis. Yeah. Maybe that's what love is.
Hypothesis.
That's right. Okay, so now they're going to go to this picnic, and she hasn't spoken to him in a couple of days.
Yeah.
But they're going to be people who date in front of everyone.
Yep.
Yes.
So An does this thing. I love An's obsession with sunscreen. It's very on point as far as her character is concerned. Loved it. And she puts like a lake of sunscreen in her hand, and then she's like, I bet you need to find a lot of surface area of skin and put it on it. I wonder who has the most surface area.
The largest, palest chest in the history of time.
Stop playing Ultimate Frisbee. Come over here, big boy. They're all shirtless.
It's Top Gun, but Frisbee. Like he had so much anxiety about this picnic, but his buddy Tom Benton's in town, and he's like, time to rip off my shirt and throw that
time
disc.
to take off
like,
shirt.
Let's go.
Cut loose.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Like, it seems like
Hammer throw, my man. Let's go.
They say he has so much social anxiety all the time. Like, they keep pressing this, like, hard for him to be around people, like, exhausts him to be around people sort of stuff. But then, like, when he does get around people, he seems very at ease. Like,
I guess, like, I have a lot of social anxiety, and you know what's not high up on the list of things that I'm going to do in front of a bunch of strangers is
taking off
my
your
fucking shirt
and
off.
running around?
Like, no thanks.
Is that it?
No thanks, everybody.
And not only that,
I also think this whole sequence says so much more about what An gets off on.
Yes.
And it does
Agreed. Loving On.
like a successful man ridden with social anxiety is not necessarily going to rip off his shirt and play Ultimate Frisbee. I would also think maybe he might not then just wander over to his grad student girlfriend and say, lather me up, baby, let's go. I'm ready for it.
Could you put the most sexually suggestive possible substance on my
Hey, the
on my
dean
chest
is
and
over
back,
there,
please?
and he needs to know that I mean business.
Oh,
Can you lube up my back, please?
Yeah, I need my grant funding, so yeah, go nuts. Go nuts, baby.
Froze my funds. Lube me up.
Boy, is this how decisions are made at Stanford? Are boards just sitting around being like,
California's a weird place.
I mean, do you remember the sunscreen incident?
Oh, man.
Jeez.
They would never do it like this at Harvard.
No wonder everybody's trying to get out and get to Harvard. Like, this is a weird way to have to like get to a situation where nobody's stealing your pipettes. Like,
it's true. Okay, so meanwhile, she has had 2 weeks to get a report together that's like all of her, for Tom to impress him into giving her a bench in his lab in Harvard for a year. So she's been working overtime, and he is making sure that he has like all of her experiment protocols and like everything she's ever done in science in her life.
And he moved the goalpost too. Like, it was supposed to be like Monday, and he's like, "How about Saturday?" Like, she's like, "Ooh." So because she's a procrastinator,
right? And then does he go on a trip with Tom?
They go back to Boston for like a little bit to do some stuff. I think it's
to do grant stuff.
And we learn
I think it's
later,
partly like his covert interview process, right?
We learn later that is the beginning of Adam's covert interview process at Harvard, which our good friend Holden Rodriguez later tells us.
He's never even considered before.
Yes, Adam has never considered this before, but I bet it's because you might go there. Like,
yeah, it is. Like, just listener, hey listener, he's had a crush on her for almost 3 years, and that's that's the reason.
From so far away.
From such a long distance crush.
Just from that one time where her eyeballs hurt so bad she couldn't even focus on him. Like, I don't think she looked pretty that day. Like,
she was so red rimmed
like,
eye.
shit wasn't
But
together.
she cared so much about science.
She cared so much about science because of her mom.
Yeah. Oh,
And her dad, who left her on Jakku, and she needed to come up with a cure for being left alone on the desert planet.
If we could only early
talked
detect when
about-
you're going to get left on Jakku, no one would get left on Jakku.
We've talked a lot on the show about the magnetic appeal of an adult orphan, and I think that could be the case. Like,
could be
this seems to be something that happens in romance a lot, where somebody's like, an orphan.
Oh,
We don't know what that is.
You don't have to meet any in-laws.
Fair.
You don't.
Yeah,
like, I
true.
think
You
that's
don't have to
part
have
of
that
it.
chapter.
Craig.
You're just free from their attachments.
Wow. Yeah,
They've
vistas are opening up in front of me right now.
Yeah.
It's true.
I mean, some people really like their in-laws. Like some people's in-laws listen to Overdue. So, like, I got no problem with my in-laws, but I can see, like, objectively
my
why
in-laws
it
are
might
great.
have some
Put it
appeal,
on the
yeah.
record. I've got no issues with my in-laws.
We all have fantastic
we
in-laws.
have great.
But we can understand, like, what if we would have all married a different person? Like,
Oh,
it could
God.
be
A werewolf.
horrible. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But all of us have great in-laws.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Glad
okay,
we put
so
that out there.
Oof, bases
Now-
covered. Oof, let's go.
doesn't he get back early from
He
his
does. He
trip?
comes back early. Yes.
And she gets surprised by him, and she's very excited about it because
Yeah.
she's been a bit bereft without
that
him
the-
around.
They've
Yeah.
been texting a little bit because phone
Is that
calls are
before
so
their kind
awkward.
of sweet late night lab scene that they have together where they chat in the lab? When he comes back early, or is that before his trip? They have like
Because
remember.
she's cranking on this paper that she's got to get to Tom early, and he's in the break room and he took her chips, right?
yes.
Yeah. Oh my God, that scene
And this
was
is
so good.
Earlier, when they had that impromptu interview where Tom asked her what was cool about her research, and Adam's like, "You're a fucking idiot. Don't ask
Right.
that question like that." And she doesn't quite get, like, she talks about how it's pancreatic cancer, but she doesn't quite talk about why. And it's obvious that it's related to some, like, tragedy in her past, but she doesn't want to get into it. And it's clear that she is not used to talking about it. Like, will go out of her way not to talk about it. And so she opens up to Adam, like, it was my mom. I lost her when I was a teenager to pancreatic cancer. And that's been, like, my driving force this whole time. And that's
Yeah.
that's one way the book signifies that things are getting serious, is like, here's a thing that obviously she doesn't like talking about, that she is talking about with this large hot man.
Yeah.
And it's just
and the
like,
way
it's-
that he listens and
Yeah.
the way that he receives that and, like, doesn't go overly sympathetic or
Yeah.
do the things that a lot of times happens when you talk about a loss like that is also very comforting to her.
And he doesn't push her to talk about it either, which
Right.
Tom was doing, which is gross.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Tom during that he was like, "Who died? When did they die?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of hurt is on your soul that
Your
I can
grief
exploit
is a
later?"
trope. Tell me about it.
Yeah.
Like, Tom sucks.
No, and that's why I really like this scene in particular. And there are a couple of others. Like I mentioned the hotel one where he is, like, describing more in depth, like his issues with his, like, previous advisor and
Yeah,
how
very
he,
dramatic.
how that influences his, like, teaching and mentoring style. Like, I thought that was very sweet. But, like, these two characters are frequently doing really annoying, improbable stuff, but there are enough little scenes like this that where it sort of pays off, like where the characterization and the setting and, like, their relationship to each other and, like, their difference in age and position, like, really comes together and pays off. That I think is why the book works.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
yeah, it's just it's nice. This is a nice scene.
I think there's also something at the end of that scene. He comes close to saying something. I don't remember what it was, and I don't remember if it's.
I think he's about to tell her that he's had a crush on her for years.
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
But
I
then
think
Jeremy
he's about
comes
to
in.
drop that he was bathroom guy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And
I
luckily,
think
Irish
both
Jeremy
things.
comes in.
Both
and-
things, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Goddamn Jeremy.
And I think part of this interaction of how then she leaves the conversation with Adam to then go with Jeremy adds fuel to the fire later when,
Yes.
right.
Good point.
like, I think that might be like the next scene is she's with she's with Malcolm, her other friend, at the coffee shop, and she. Oh, God, she's
oh my God, Malcolm
mess.
is such a pansexual dreamboat, though.
Yeah, I do love Malcolm.
Really quick.
I love
so
Malcolm.
Sorry. Malcolm's forever?
Malcolm Forever. I did like immediately clock that the best friends of the two romantic leads were going to get together. Like this was going to be a full When Harry Met Sally situation.
Sure.
And it was going to happen and it was going to be great. And then it didn't, and it was.
And this is Holden, not Tom, because Tom sucks. Holden.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
Tom's
no,
we haven't met the
They're
real
both
best
great
friend yet.
friends, like great supportive friends. They're good guys.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're having coffee with Malcolm. She has a Wednesday at Schmervayam coffee date with Adam every
Yes.
week to be seen having coffee. That's their 10 minutes a week. For some reason, we're having coffee with Malcolm at the same time.
At like 9:55.
Yeah.
she doesn't
Because
think about
she's
this.
freaking out because she just realized that like she likes him, likes him. And she's also finally figuring out that she's demisexual. So she's been sort of confused for a lot of the book. Well, not a lot of the book, but like she talks about a lot of the years
A lot of her
before
life
this.
before the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being really confused because she's like, I just don't experience attraction the way that it seems like other people do. And she's realizing that like she has to trust someone and like really respect them and really like or love them in order to experience any sexual attraction. And she's got the biggest boner for Adam that like has ever happened.
The pipette
And
is
she-
full. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's like, but he would never, not with me. Holden already, oh my God, she had this conversation with Holden where he was like, yeah, he's been talking about this girl and I'm so glad that now he has a girlfriend because it's been long enough
Holden
that he's
straight
been
up
in
fucking
love with
tells
you.
her that it's her. He's like, I'm
Yeah.
so glad
No,
he finally
he
got
doesn't.
with you because
And
he's
her
been talking about this girl
yeah.
for so long. And she's
but
like,
he
And
must
her
be a different
imposter
girl.
syndrome and her like deep deep-seated dislike of herself or like
Yeah.
distrust of herself makes her think, oh well, it can't possibly be me.
Well, no, but it's also because
yeah.
he phrases it in a way that's like he would only ever date this girl that he's been in love with for 3 years. And she's like, well, that's not me because he's only fake dating me. Oh no.
And we met 2 years and 11 months ago, which is much different than 3 years.
But he was probably watching her sleep before that, before the bathroom.
completely. Yeah, he was definitely climbing into her
the force.
window.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's telling Malcolm, she's like, what would I even tell him anyway? Like, I can't talk to him about this. What would I
That
just say?
I like him.
I
That every
like him.
time he's around, I'm horny for him. I don't. It was better.
I want to hop on his D. Is that what you want me to say to him?
Yeah, that's what the book was.
Yeah.
And then she's like, "Oh my gosh, he's here for the standing weekly appointment that I have with him at this time." My God, like she just never
And
has.
he
her
has
shit together.
overheard enough of it, but not that it was about him.
So what does she do, Andrew? What does she do?
She's like, well, if you have somebody who you secretly love and it's not me, then I have somebody who I secretly love and it's not you.
It's totally not
So,
you. I wasn't talking
there.
about you at all. I'm going to
It's
lie.
definitely a guy named Jeremy.
She doesn't say that though. He assumes that it's Jeremy.
No, he assumes that it's Jeremy. There's some faults on both sides of this divide, but yeah, she decides to pull the old switcheroo.
One thing that I loved is that she says, "Oh, it's not about you." I wasn't saying that, and he was like, "Yeah, I know." Like he was very.
Yeah, because
he's
he hates
the
himself
same.
too for no
Right.
reason. But the thing that's nuts about him thinking that it's Jeremy is like, Jeremy
Why
is
are
the
we
original.
fake dating then?
Yeah, so Jeremy was the
he was the
original
impetus for
guy
the
that we
fake
were
dating in the
fake
first
dating
place.
to show that she wasn't into him. Now she is into him. So maybe we stop. But now we're just fake dating for grant funding.
Aren't
Yeah.
scientists supposed to be good at maths? Because like that equation is fucked.
It doesn't add up.
as
It's
soon
true. It
as
doesn't
Jeremy's on the other side. You know.
I mean, maybe he just knows Olive and her lying style enough at this point to know that she would never go as the crow flies between two points, like in a human relationship. She would always need to go the roundabout way.
So
Okay.
So that's like the big kind of 2/3 of the way through relationship complication. It doesn't like break up their fake relationship, but it sets both of them on an expectation that like after this, it is probably over. Like I think they both kind of understand, and she is obviously pushing the notion of being with him away, because if she ever got involved with him, then he would disappear, and she would actually lose him because she can't get close to him.
Yes.
There's
his
like a
lungs
big
would
event in
fall out
Boston.
or something.
Is like everyone's going to Boston is the
Everyone's
last
going to the
chapter.
big event
It's
in
conference
Boston.
time. It's academic conference time,
Yep.
where they ask a bunch of super poor people to rent $300 hotel rooms for no reason.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what happens there is that both of her pals, the ones that they were going to room with, Ann is like, I'm taking my first boyfriend trip and we're having a room together. And then Malcolm's like, I decided to bunk in with these bitches. And so she has nowhere to stay. And so
And everyone's like, we just thought you'd stay with the hot guy.
We just thought you'd stay with the hot
You
guy
have a
that you're
boyfriend.
dating. Mhm.
Yeah. And so
they know he's the keynote speaker, even though she doesn't.
she
She doesn't know
he's the keynote
speaker.
speaker.
Jeez whiz.
How?
We're supposed to just trust that her science is so good.
Yeah.
With, like,
Her science
with
is so good because she
nothing-
isn't able to do any kind of analytical problem solving in
Yes.
any other relationship.
Or like
very
noticing that
focused.
she never notices anything. Like, this was
Yeah.
on the front of the program. She even says, I'm sure it was huge on the front of the program and I just didn't notice. Like,
It was probably on banners in the fucking lobby.
yeah,
man.
Listen,
we're just
if it
supposed
had
to
been-
really hard trust that she's
If
good
it
at
had
science.
been in between a couple of those little glass slides under a microscope, she would have noticed it because her science is so good.
That's all she thinks
It's
about
true.
is science.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she's been invited to speak on a panel about her research. She was supposed
She
to
doesn't
just
know
make
who
a
was on the
poster.
panel with her.
Yeah, she doesn't know who's on the panel either. She's petrified of it. He helps her prepare. It's very sweet.
It is.
Yeah, he
He's
helps her
like,
put her
send me your
PowerPoint deck
slides.
together. Yeah.
And she's like, OMG. Because like that honestly is love.
Yeah.
I mean, that's very erotic. Is
Yeah.
and just trying to make sure that he has like the right fonts and like the version of PowerPoint that he needs to open the file. Like it's very intimate.
Yeah.
But her backgrounds were lime green
Yeah.
They were
on the
indeed.
slides that she was
I
going
mean-
to present to other scientists.
Maybe it was just supposed to be like an intentional homage to the early internet that didn't. It didn't
Nickelodeon
stand.
aesthetic.
To a GeoCities,
Oh.
like
Yeah, like it
Okay.
was just like this is my Angel Fire presentation about pancreatic cancer.
my live
It's under
journal
construction.
about pancreatic cancer.
Yeah, it has a little under construction GIF guy on.
Except he's got like a microscope or something.
Yes.
This rules.
Oh my gosh.
But she's kind of terrified of that, but she's going to stay with him in his hotel room. They have
Yeah, he offers
twin
to let her
beds.
stay.
or whatever.
And he's
Yes.
like, she's like, no, I can't possibly do that because there will only be one
There
bed.
will only be one bed. Mhm.
And he's like, what? No, I got a double bed. I got the confirmation email. I can forward it to you. And she's like, no, when this happens, it's always only one bed.
Which it's kind of fun that she's always commenting on the romantic comedy tropes. Like, oh my gosh, we're fake dating. It's just like a like, oh, we're doing all the tropey things. There will only be one bed. It will be all these happenstances. But it's like she's never watched the end of one of these movies.
Totally.
She's like, all of these things are happening to bring us together, but we
I think
couldn't
that might be
possibly.
right though, because I think early on when she's like, "Oh, I'm best friends with An. We always eat junk food and fall asleep watching movies." Maybe
my
she
God,
never
never sees the
finishes
end
the
of one.
movie.
Oh my God, Craig, you're right.
She's never seen anybody get the.
She just thinks
She's
at the
never
end,
seen that
the hero
ending
is like,
kiss.
"You're not good enough for me. Goodbye forever." She's like,
Yeah.
man, those
Yeah.
movies are so sad.
Yeah,
Famously,
she never
how
sees Matthew McConaughey get on that motorcycle and go across the bridge, to get that yellow dress lady.
Richard Gere probably just keeps paying her to show up. It probably never
Yes.
changes.
Yeah,
It's probably the same.
I mean,
the whole
and
time.
everybody remembers the end of You Got Mail, where Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan are just like, "Okay, bye."
Bye.
The funny thing about
see each other
Melodies
again.
with Matthew McConaughey on the motorcycle is that that could have been the wedding planner or How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
Yeah.
That's why I threw the yellow dress in there.
Oh,
you
sorry,
know
sorry.
what I'm talking about
I didn't
now.
hear that
Sure.
part. Sorry.
Yeah, he was also carrying his Lumfern. I'm sure about it.
I recall.
So now she agrees, and because he says, "I'm only going to be there for one night anyway. We'll only have like one overlapped night,
Yep.
and we'll be
Barely
chaste and
any time to
wonderful."
have sex at all,
Yeah, not mere hours.
which we won't,
no, never.
because we agreed.
So she goes, and he like walks in early. She's like, he would never come to the hotel room that his name is on and he has a key to. And he does get there just in time to see her in her flatteringly shrunken little black dress.
Who doesn't try on their outfit before they go to the thing?
Right?
Oh my God.
Yeah. Anyway, he's into it.
Yeah.
Hard into it.
He can't go to her talk because, surprise, he's the keynote speaker.
He's the keynote speaker. Who knew? Who could
then-
possibly have known?
Yeah, and then she gets to her panel, and Tom Benton is like, "Fancy seeing you here. Oh, this is so cool. We have a panel together." And she's like, "Really? Oh my God! What a weird."
Wait, but the talk and the panel are different things, right?
The
No,
keynote
it's
speak
like
is different. No,
I've
it's
seen
like
The keynote speech is the reason why Adam can't come to her presentation.
Right.
And that Tom and Olive are on the panel together is why he is at her presentation.
I've been to
Right.
panels like this through like medical school stuff that I've worked with, where like it's like 4 or 5 people, they each do their like little mini TED Talk thing, and then they sit back down, and then
and
they
they're
do
usually
like a moderated.
thematically.
Yeah.
I understand that. Okay. So she had her talk, and then immediately following is the panel where it's like the Q&A.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. They
cool.
all get a
I got
turn
it.
to be like, "This is the science I'm doing. Now ask us questions."
Understood.
So it goes really well. And then afterwards, everybody's like, "Wow, Olive, you've done such a good job saving pancreases all over the world." And she's like, "Wow, I really did. I barely stammered over words that I know backwards and forwards. It's totally cool." And then Tom fucking Benton comes slithering up to her and
What
holding
a heel turn. Like,
what a heel turn.
real
I mean,
bad.
we
Went
from 0 to 100% villain so fast.
Yeah,
Well,
it's like
there
a
were
guy
definitely-
one friend of Adam's didn't like for reasons that he didn't disclose, to full on cartoon, like rubbing his hands together.
He's
tying
twirling his
Olive to
mustache.
he's like tying Olive to train tracks while
Yes.
he's delivering this monologue.
He said
Yeah.
like 15 things where like 2 things would have done enough, like to make
most
him a
definitely.
villain.
So yeah, he comes on to her. He, basically just tries to start kissing her there and then forcibly without,
Yeah.
she stops him. She
I mean,
rejects
to be
his.
fair, she's done that to others.
Well, and,
So
and
like,
the book,
let's just call it even at this point.
I think the book is aware that it's doing that. I think, I
Right.
think.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Yeah,
there's also
definitely.
the author's note at the end where she talks a little bit more about Title IX stuff. So I think she's like purposefully doing that.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And
Yeah.
He is then like, well, what? You were totally sleeping your way to the top. Why did you think I was going to give you this thing? And then he also, Aaron, he starts like villain monologuing about how he's like going to undo Adam's career from the inside, and he's going to steal all her research. And he's, just takes off his face and it's a lizard, and he's just an awful human.
Yes. True.
And,
Yeah.
and she's like, why are you doing this? And he's like, because I can. Because I'm a man in science. Like,
Yeah.
no one will ever believe you.
Well,
Like,
it is. I understand that it happens this way because it needs to happen this way, because Olive, who is really good at pancreas science but otherwise doesn't have 2 brain cells that she can rub together, has left her iPhone voice memo thing going from
my
the
God.
presentation for this whole time, so she's caught it on tape and so she can fix it later. But the description we get of Tom otherwise is this guy who's actually really adept at using soft power and like
Right.
manipulating people without them realizing that he's manipulating them. And for him to come fully out and just to be full villain in this moment just feels, I mean, it feels like it's happening because it has to happen. And
Yeah.
unlike a lot of the other stuff that happens in the book, it doesn't feel like it's happening because of reasons that are like rooted in character or.
Yeah.
Well, and you're right. It's really interesting because so much of his character is using charm as social currency to get ahead. And so just, pulling back his face and showing his lizard parts is pretty surprising. There was a moment, however, where I didn't know where it was going, and it might be a commentary on me. But when he was saying, I have what you need, don't I? At the Harvard labs. I was like, wait. This is not the hero.
Is this about beakers?
I want to say, all right, let the record reflect that Melody was into Tom Benton during this speech.
But just like that one part,
and she was hoping this would end in a sexy throuple in Boston.
I mean,
it could have.
I wouldn't hate it. I'm always into the sexy throuple.
That's one. I mean, it's a hypothesis that didn't work out.
It's true.
Yeah.
But as scientists, it's good that you wanted to.
I explored it,
discover.
Andrew.
Yeah, empirically.
I do want to say this though, because I wish it was. I wish it was less of a full villain turn. I think you kind of touched on this, Andrew. Like, I wish it was not recorded. I wish it wasn't a full villain turn. I wish instead of it being recorded, she did have like a situation where maybe people didn't believe her, but Adam did, or because it's just not how it happens in real life. Like, somebody doesn't give you a villain monologue and step out and say like, I'm evil and I'm going to sleep with you when you come to Harvard. Like, instead it's like, it's like an undercurrent or like one comment where you're like, did that just happen? Am I wrong? Like, and you're second guessing yourself. And then you're like, if I tell somebody about this, how is it going to sound? And like, I wish it was something that was a little more realistic in that way. Because
the whole thing that like, so before she tells Adam about this, she tells Holden about this, who's Adam's BFF that we mentioned earlier. And he is, because he is the only one who had expressed any doubt whatsoever about Tom and his character and his motivations up to this point. And, because Holden and Malcolm have started boning, Malcolm is like, why don't you go? Yeah. And we're all very happy about that. Malcolm is like, why don't you go ask, maybe this guy's best friend in the whole world about how he would respond to this. And he says this thing about how, we're scientists and we are trained to seek evidence and to change the way that we think based on what the evidence is, whether that agrees with what our hypothesis is, whether it's what we want or not. And I think even that point that the book is like explicitly making would be better made if she wasn't literally like Phoenix Wright, like presenting evidence, like here's the tape recording of this guy saying exactly the thing in exactly the terms that would be admissible in a court.
I also like what you said earlier, Andrew, because like, he is this soft power guy that our two main characters are incapable of being. Like they can't function in the world that way.
They're guileless.
Yeah. And so what I like about this being part of his supervillain power set is that like the book is not saying that if they had those skills they would be better served actually. But I think you're right that he is smart enough that he would probably be playing a longer con than this moment.
Yes, he would have to get her there. Come on,
in
everybody.
Real world, she would have undoubtedly walked away from this conversation confused as to whether or not she'd heard what she thought she just heard, or what if he was actually saying the thing she thought he was just saying. And there would be nothing for her to latch on to of like, Tom said this to me and it was offensive.
Or at this point, it would have just been like way more, it would have just been charm. Like it would still be charm because she's not in his lab yet.
No.
She owes him nothing right now.
Before you try to...
Right? You have to have power over her before you can exert power over her.
The only motivation that
Dr. B.
The only motivation I think that makes sense for him going this bad this soon is that he actually thinks she's too good of a scientist and doesn't want her in his lab at all. Because he does say, like, no one will believe you. I have all of your notes. I'm just going to do your work. And so
and I'm going to take it as mine.
If he invites her, or if he honors the agreement,
do sex.
But if he honors the agreement and then makes the play later, then there's like a whole, like, she came out to Boston. She's recorded as being part of his lab. Like, I think at this point, I don't know. I don't think that the book is really making this argument. I'm just trying to figure out a way that
I don't think he's intentionally trying to blow it up. I think maybe he's overplaying his hand because he thinks because of all the stuff that you said is true. Like he thinks that even and you know, to support his hypothesis, like she is leaning in the direction of like not reporting him, not doing anything until she realizes that she literally has a voice recording of him saying all this stuff to
because
her.
in between her going to Holden or talking to anybody about this, she like is very clearly shaken, and then she just goes back to the hotel room, and then she has a wonderful night with Adam.
Yeah.
They go on a date and eat sushi.
He comes back to the hotel.
A lot of conveyor belt sushi before this very lengthy sex scene, which I was like, a lot of conveyor belt sushi in the digestive
I feel like there would be gastrointestinal issues that would get in the way of this night.
Nomming on stuff that she's like, who knows what kind of fish this is? Room temperature.
I know this is out of character for me, but we do need to back up before we get to the sex. Right. And that is that when he walks in, the way that he handles this is really incredible for her. So she's crying and he's like, what happened? Who did this to you? And she says, basically she tells him that people in general were saying that she's a bad scientist and that she's mediocre and that she's derivative. And the only reason she got on the panel was because she was his girlfriend and like all the things Tom said to her. And he is like, he just pokes holes in all of those things and really builds her back up. And then he tells her, I don't know if this is before or after. It's probably after. Doesn't matter. He tells her about his advisor and like really gets into the nitty gritty of it. And the interesting thing about that is that Tom Benton was always there to sort of mediate the abuse that the advisor did on Adam. But we find out later from Holden that it was for things that like he would have no idea about Adam doing unless he had a spy on the inside.
Yeah.
So it seems like Tom has been his long con here. And this is why I think the heel turn is so unbelievable, because he's literally been doing this for 10 years with Adam. Is like getting him in trouble and then defending him and really making Adam, the better scientist, think that Tom is, rely on Tom in other ways so that Tom can get good science out of him and put his name on it too.
Yeah.
Okay, but she's crying and he's wiping tears off her face and it's all very cute.
Gently,
and then
thumb to cheekbone.
He does do the thumb on that cheekbone.
Yeah.
And then he's like, let's skip everything and we'll go out and we'll get you drinks and we'll get you food.
Let's just
cute.
Do alcohol, and then on top of that, lukewarm conveyor belt sushi, all you can eat $20. And then on top of that, a pumpkin spice sugar drink. Yeah. Oh no, that comes later.
And then as soon as you're done having the worst diarrhea of your entire life, we'll go back to the hotel room and we'll have sex.
So they do go back to that hotel room, and she only has 2 beers, and it was hours ago. And we need it's noted for the record, everyone.
Yep.
Because after he sort of spills his guts to her, she's like, "Wow, it's time to kiss." So
she did forget her. There's 2 beds, but there is 0 pajamas. So she has to wear his shirt, which is so big on her.
Oh my god!
Because he's such a big man.
He is. That's actually, yes, that is why, Andrew. Good job.
Yeah. And she's also wearing these unicorn knee socks.
She's wearing knee socks.
Whoa.
Okay.
Whoa.
Why can't she just like get her shit together for like one moment in time? Like.
Okay, so she does sidle on up to him and she kisses him and he's like, wow, this is a bad idea. And in her inner monologue, she's thinking, yep, he's totally right. But out loud, she keeps saying, why? And so they go through all of it and he's like, I am in a position of power over you. It's a this, it's a that. I don't want you to change your mind later. He's like, going through all of it. And she's very like, I don't care. This is all I want. And then she explains to him that she's demisexual.
The words are never said,
though. This is a big deal. Never said. No. She just says, like, I can only experience sexual attraction when I have an emotional connection, and like, I really like you and I really trust you to infinity and beyond. So I do want you to put it in me right now. And
I think if this had been a thing that she'd only really recently discovered about herself, I don't think she would have the terminology to
No, I just think it's important to say that it's never said in the book. This is something we're saying.
Yeah.
I think it is believable that she wouldn't be like, yesterday I figured out I am a demisexual. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
they start with other stuff. Which is fun.
It's making out and there's a finger bang.
What we call on the show a traditional Highlander finger banging.
That's the one.
He's got big knuckles, she says.
Yes.
Well,
The
really,
first
does she
knuckle.
have
She's
big
got a
knuckles?
problem with the first knuckle. That's
Or just-
nuts.
Because she has the
That's
teeny
this one.
tiniest little channel. Ooh, it's so tight and small and warm, he says later. Or little, maybe.
I don't know. They have a good time though.
So my favorite.
Listen, so
Yada,
okay,
yada,
so
yada.
they're doing
Yes,
this.
no, go,
they're
go,
doing
go.
this finger bang, and he can tell that she's a little bit uncomfortable. And he's like, "Hey, you seem really tense. Like, are you still okay? You can say no anytime. Like, you don't have to go through with this." And she's like, "No, I've never wanted anything more." And so he's like, "Okay, but then you've done this before, right? Because things seem a little." Like not. And she says, yeah.
I've gotten finger blasted twice in college. And now.
And so then he's like,
Everyone who's listening is figuring out, like, all the Overdue listeners are like, this is why it said explicit at the start. Like, it's just been a lot of science. Like, when is it getting to the finger blasting?
When are we going to get to the finger blasting factory?
Now is when it is.
it's here, everybody. So, okay. So then he's like, no, I can't do this. We have to stop. You're basically a virgin. And she says one of the cutest science rants.
Oh, she does do a science rant.
Yeah.
She does an adorable science rant right now, and I'm going to read it to you.
Please.
So he says, you're basically a virgin. She's like, I'm not. And then he goes, but so close to it. And she's like, no, that's not the way it works. Virginity is not a continuous variable. It's categorical, binary, nominal, dichotomous, ordinal, potentially. I'm talking about chi-square, maybe Spearman's correlation, logistic regression, the Logit model.
I knew when you started. I didn't want to be like, there's going to be a lot of words in this, Mel, but like, I wanted to believe in you.
And that stupid sigmoid function. Listen, I got most of them, but Logit did throw me for a loop. Yeah. Logit, I think.
Logit.
Yeah.
And he's taken with this. He likes it.
Oh man, he does a laughing kiss on her.
Just rock hard, yeah.
Yeah. So then he's like, okay, we're still doing this, but we do have to go about it a bit differently. And I like that he has, multiple paths to get to the same place. It's nice.
Yeah.
It's nice. So then he does do a go down on her.
Yes.
And she's like, oh, no, don't. I've never done this before. She actually says, I'm the one who put you up to this. So like, we should do stuff on you that you're into.
We should do stuff that you want to do. Yeah.
She's like, you don't want to do this. This is something I want to do. And then he like puts her hand on his like super rock hard erection. It's like, I do want to do it. And then he starts going down on her and she's like, you don't want to do this. And he's like, I'm the hero in a romance novel. Like I do really want to go down on you for the most time possible.
Yeah.
She always fell asleep before that part of the movie though, so she doesn't know that this is how this works.
Right. That's true. That's true. This all happens off camera in the wedding planner and other 10 things I hate about you.
Indeed. So, okay. So as this is happening, he's like, no, I love it. She's like, I think it's going to take a long time. I'm nervous. And he's like, yeah, take as much time as possible. Later on, he's like, I want to go down on you until you pass out.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, please.
At one point, he's like,
No,
you have to stop talking or else I will come and you need to stop because I need to just keep going.
Yeah.
It gets to the point where she's like, sir, please stop. Like,
yeah. Like things are too sensitive already.
It's
we gotta
enough.
cool it a little. So then they do have missionary sex. And it's really good. This is when he's like, no, your voice is too hot. Like, I'm gonna blast off
they have
any moment now.
unprotected sex.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, but she's on birth control and she's clean. She's clean, she says.
Hate
verbatim.
that.
Yes.
He
Hate
never
the word clean.
says that he's also been tested recently.
Yeah.
No.
don't know
It's
about
only
that,
really a
Olive.
worry for her. Yeah.
Yeah. You think that you could have had like a little callback to Flucella there? You could have talked about
Yes.
like our
Oh my God.
what
didn't
we're
talk about
protected
Flucella,
against.
but-
We don't need to talk
Yeah.
about Flucella, but it's a thing that happens. He's afraid
of needles, everyone.
Yeah.
So something I really like about reading romance novels on my Kindle is, you know, how Kindle has that feature where if a lot of people highlight something, then the Kindle tells you the thing that a lot of people highlight.
Please read aloud.
And
Tell me.
the one section of the sex scene that a lot of people were really into is this is Olive saying, this is the start of the underline. 1,827 people highlighted this part of the book. "You're so big," says Olive. "He groaned into her neck. His entire body was vibrating with tension. You can take it." And that's the highlight.
I mean, to be fair, I also highlighted it.
No, it's good.
So...
You were one of the 1,827 people.
Yeah. I will say that
it's right there.
When people on social, so like when this book then got the backlash and was like, this book is cringe, the thing in the sex scene that people were like, this sex scene is the worst. People were mad about the part where he puts her whole boob in his mouth.
That part was.
So I just want to mention it. At one point, he does take his big, huge Kylo Ren mouth and suck her whole Rey boob into it.
Her whole tit in there.
And I
when you're one with the Force, you know.
Yeah.
The Force. I had an issue with that both from like a logistical standpoint and from would anybody be into this?
It seems like
either side, really. Like,
well, the next day her tits are sore because of all the stuff he's been doing on them.
Yeah, she probably has like a full boob hickey. Like that would take a lot of suction to get in there.
She
Absolutely.
did
Plus,
say
like the teeth.
she wanted to do things that he was into, Andrew. So
that's true. In the full boob, the boob and mouth.
I want to do things for
you.
you.
Get off if he has a woman's
Yeah. Yeah.
They call that the Bunsen burner, is what they call it.
Oh, nice.
That's called the Petri dish. No, I think maybe the Petri dish. The Petri dish is later when he like goes down on her again and licks all of his own.
And cleans her up.
You're right. That's the Petri dish.
That's the Petri dish, and it's very important to clean up your lab when you're finished doing science.
It really is.
He's serious about it. He doesn't need no janitors in here. Okay. So they do have good sex. It's like transformative.
I can't say janitor because it just makes me think about him throwing sawdust. Oh no. All right.
Look, it's stuff he's into,
Yeah,
Andrew.
true. She's a wunderkind.
So funny.
I like here's one part from the section that I liked. It's right after the highlight we just
one
read.
part.
No, I like this part because so they
it wasn't tit mouth.
It was not tit mouth. They start having sex, and then Adam pulled out, pushed back in, and they annihilated the no sex rule. I like that. Like the annihilation of the rule felt physical and like part of the action of them having. It was just, I don't know, the shift from
kinetic.
it being the shift from it being descriptive of their bodies to being descriptive of their relationship just worked for me. I liked it.
Yeah.
And they broke that part of the contract.
Agreed.
They ripped it up, and then they had sex on top of it.
Man.
It's so much sex, though.
So much sex.
So they do the traditional Highlander finger banging. Then he goes down on her. Then they do missionary penetrative sex. Then she takes a little naparino, little snoozer, small snoozer.
She does
go nap
down on her
again.
again.
Also come again to the penetrative sex.
Yeah.
Yes, she does.
I noted,
Which, like, come on, that's fine.
Then he goes down on her
she hasn't
again.
had sex in like 12 years or something like that. It's hard to come after you haven't had sex for like 12 years.
She's like really into this is Kylo Ren. So then he goes down
It's
on her
true.
again just to clean up all the splooge down there.
Yeah.
Then she gives him a beach. Then he's like, "Can I fuck you again?" And she's like, "No, sir. Like, Jesus. Like, we have to sleep. Like, my God." Which when he said when he was like, "Can I fuck you again?" I was like, okay. Like, come on. And I'm really glad that was also her reaction to that.
I'm sure there are a lot of books where they would she would be like, yeah, all right, let's just
well, no,
keep
that's
going.
the reason that she goes down on him, because
you're right,
she's
you're
like,
right, you're right.
you did go down on me and I had a big ol' orgasm. I would like to do the same for you. And he's like,
Yes.
no, Olive, you don't have to. Oh, no. Does it even fit in your tiny mouth? I don't know. And it does. It's fine.
Yeah, it does. And she's like, I've never done this before. Has anyone
tell
ever
me.
done it to you? And he's like, yes, because I'm a 34-year-old man. I've had a blowjob before.
Just imagine that you're trying to fit somebody's whole titty in your mouth.
Yes.
And it's kind of like that.
I'm here. Yeah. Okay, so then she's like, when do you leave for your Harvard interview situation? Because he's like, I am maybe going to be in Harvard next year to take you on hikes and like maybe finger blast you in the outdoors. And she is like, oh, like she's thinking to herself, well, I'm not taking that job with Tom Benton. So like this is super definitely over, because also one of the things she doesn't want to report Tom Benton because she doesn't want to sabotage Adam's like incredible grant and collaboration and all the things, even though he gets like 20 grants a year.
Yeah, like who wants to work with a guy who just tried to like rape your girlfriend? Like,
and they've unfrozen his funds, so he's like, you know, good to go. It's September 29th
finds that
now
out.
also.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so she
Holden.
thinks he must be gone. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, okay, long story short, she breaks up with him because it's the 29th. His funds are gone. His funds are, you know, in the world.
They're back.
And,
Yes.
and Ann and Jeremy are happy together because let's review, that is why this all started.
Yep.
Yes.
And then he's like, as she breaks up with him, he's like, no, if you never need anything, like I want you to come to me. I'm still here for you no matter what. And like, I will love you from afar, just like I did before. No worries. And then, so she goes back, she does find that recording. And then she's like, okay, I have empirical evidence. I'm going to do science on this motherfucker. And Holden says, yeah, Adam likes Tom, but like he would not be into anybody who behaves this way. So, and that he's not like hard up enough to even consider working with this man just for a grant.
Yeah. And also he only said he was going to go to Harvard like the day after he learned that you were going to go up there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. So she goes to one of the restaurants in which he is doing an after interview dinner. And as soon as she walks in the door, he like sees her with his force eyes. And then he gets up and like levitates all the way over there immediately. And he's like, why are you here? What's going on? Did you change your mind? And she's like, I have things to tell you. And then Tom
Benton
comes
like
over.
runs up. He's like, hey, I'm here too.
Oh, hey.
Hey, I'm Tom.
Hey, oh, yeah, hi. Can I intimidate you from right now? And so she starts playing the recording, and Adam does go berserker mode, and he physically attacks him.
Pushes him like a truck. Yeah.
Pulls out his lightsaber and pretends like Tom is a control panel on the Star Destroyer.
swooshes
True.
that lightsaber.
He swooshes it hard.
Swoosh.
So then he gets Tom fired. He puts her on a plane, and like they get back to San Francisco at the same time somehow. It's fine. And now they're going to do a double date with Malcolm and Holden.
It's very cute.
And like they're going to be together forever. And it's so cute. And they're so comfortable together at dinner. And
But
great. What?
this is when she figures out that she was the girl he was in love with for 3 years. And she figures out for sure that he was the bathroom man. And also that he remembers that he was the bathroom man.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, and when he figures out, because she tells him that she's not, that Jeremy wasn't the guy she was in love with. Like, let's just all consider that this is the dinner where these two hot dummies figure all of that out.
Is that all?
And we needed like
It's
Chinese fortune cookies to do it.
It's good that they got together, because otherwise 2 whole other people would have to date them and deal with all this stuff. They really are made for each other in this way.
Truly.
Don't they go back to the bathroom in the epilogue?
That's the epilogue. Aaron, did you read the epilogue?
Of course
it's a hard
not.
no.
I don't read epilogues.
I didn't think it was a bathroom. I thought it was the like by
They go
the
to the
water
hallway.
fountain where they
The-
kissed the first time. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they go to the hallway. It's like 1 year, and she's like, it's 10 more seconds until the time when I did assault you that first time.
That's right.
And Yeah. And so then they start talking about like, oh yeah, we did this and we did that. And it's like so cute. And we're still here at Stanford because she also got a closer lab job.
Berkeley.
It's all great. Everything's
Berkeley,
coming up.
yes.
These hot dummies. It's
Mhm.
great.
And like, I think the closing line is something like, it's similar to the end of the prologue where it's like she has a good reason to do science and to like stick it out in science, and he's the reason now too.
Ooh.
I think that's what it means. It's something like that. I don't remember what the exact wording is, but she's got
I made like an affirmative noise like I knew, but I've already said I didn't read it.
We don't read them.
Yeah, I did say that. But it sounded right.
Yeah, it sounds like something the book would do. Like,
yeah,
I
it
remember
sounds
reading
like the
it.
right way to end it. Yeah.
Remember reading it, being like, "Oh, that's why the prologue ended that way." Like it felt like Star Wars, it rhymed with itself.
Yeah. And the very last line is, "May I kiss you, Dr. Carlson?" So at least she fixed that.
Yeah, she is asking for consent this time.
Yeah.
Well, that's nice. We've all learned.
I know. Big growth in this book, I'll tell you.
That's science, baby.
It's just science,
Wasn't
baby.
it fun? And there were a lot of times that we sort of skipped over where like there was really good romantic tension and banter and like I don't know.
Yeah,
a
they,
lot of little cute interactions between them.
they have a lot of
Yeah,
good
it was
banter.
it was pretty evocative in that way.
I think listen, it does get overshadowed by when she like cakes him in sunscreen in front of all of her friends
In
and
front of his
colleagues.
bosses.
But there are a bunch of quieter moments also that are that make the relationship work.
Something for everyone.
Justify the sunscreen stuff.
I just feel like someone in the advisory board might just say, like, just might put an extra eye on her to be like, she's one of our leading young grad students, but she's very comfortable lubing up her professor boyfriend at a picnic. We should maybe that's not the
Give him
slam-
his grant money back.
Yeah. Release
Yeah.
the funds.
It's so funny to me.
No, nobody needs to open an investigation into anything or anybody. The only
No.
investigation that needs to happen is why is this man not being given the full use of his grant money?
Yeah.
He earned it. Okay.
Yeah. And
Everybody-
also now Holden and Malcolm are in a professor-student relationship. But it's okay because nobody is each other's
Yes.
advisors, so
But
it's
once
all
again,
fine.
different departments.
Yeah,
it's all in different petri dishes.
It's all
you know?
technically on the up and up. Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks for this recommendation, friends.
This was fun.
No, this is a fun book.
Yeah.
Anytime.
You're welcome.
I did enjoy these two stupid idiots
So now we've done a
who
historical,
managed to find each other.
a
Yes,
historical
we've done historical.
paranormal, and we've done a contemporary. So we'll have to do.
We'll just
something
keep hitting you
else next time.
with other subgenres.
Yeah.
Craig, we're
great.
gonna have to figure out what book we're gonna make them read.
Yeah.
I think it needs to
Oh
be
no, like a literature book.
as far from
Like no
not like,
smooches at all.
I'm not gonna say none smooches.
I'm going to tell you right now, I am I will strike against Lady Chatterley's lover.
Sure,
it's not going to
that's
happen.
fine.
That's fine.
That's
No.
fine.
Yeah.
I think we can find something that is. I feel like something in something else in a fantasy context would be fun.
I feel
Or
like-
sci-fi
really fun,
context,
yeah.
maybe.
Yeah, I feel like-
yeah,
You
we
guys
can
just
think about
did
it.
As I Lay Dying, which I loathe more than almost any book in the history of time. So like you almost can't do
also-
worse than
Yeah,
that for
news.
me.
If news you can use. I also did not care that much for As I Lay
God, I
Dying.
hate As I Lay Dying.
I feel like there's something in our kind of YA fantasy vein that might be a good kind of like
Yeah.
exploration of genre stuff that
Totally.
we could do together would be really fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll think on it.
Into it. All right. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, you. Yes, listener, you. Are you loving the show? If so, please leave a rating and review in your podcast app. The 90 seconds you take to say something nice not only helps new people find the show, but it makes me super smile over at HBHQ. Also, I've had a few people ask, and the answer is yes. We are still doing the 5-star bribe. If you leave us a review with 5 stars, then we'll do whatever book you want. We're real deep into the list, though, so it might be a while. Lilas! Okay, back to the show.